Let's get ready to rumble! Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's going to be a rumble and some because our guest tonight, they call them the first class of UK wrestling, but I would say they're the first class of professional wrestling because right now, between the two of them, they're holding not one, not two, not three, but four championship belts, and we're going to see them not once but twice coming up here for our friends over at Nonstop Action Wrestling's Nuclear Winter here next Saturday at the Be Strong Performance Center there in Swinton. They're going to be a part of a really, really intriguing tag team match because they're going to be against last week's guest, the Cult of Killjoy, Dan Robertson, who will be alongside him as his rather intriguing tag team partner himself, Young Horace. I'm still not sure how Young Horace feels about it, but the guys are going to be in action. Plus, in addition to that, we're going to see them in the Winter Rumble, which the winner of that is going to get a shot at whoever walks away from the world-class championship match, the main event between the GT Ministries champion, Disciple, and, of course, Tommy Dillon, the wild card, the Nonstop Action Wrestling world-class champion. So, further ado here on the Sports Report with number one global sports show, pro wrestling stars here, the Immortal Wrestling fighting champion, Champagne Charlie, the WAW world champion, the Nomad, Dalton Garrett. The champs are here. Gentlemen,
right.
How you doing?
How's it going? How's it going, brother? Okay.
That was one hell of an introduction. Thank you.
That was one
You know what's funny?
hell of an introduction. If he's got MC duties on the night, we're golden.
Well, I'll try to get there. I'll try to see if we can kind of fly me there, and we'll see. But who knows? Be that as it may, we had to give you that kind of intro because it's not every day we get on two wrestlers with the class of you guys. 4 championships between them. You're here in Nonstop Action Wrestling. You're definitely here for reasons. But I'm going to get to Dan Robertson. I'm going to get to Young Horace in a little while. But I obviously want to start at the top here because it was just announced a little while before we were about to go on the air here, guys, that you are both going to be a part of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Winter Rumble here that's going to take place next Saturday at the Be Strong Performance Center there in Swinton. And obviously want to ask you guys, because you guys could be adding more gold to the resume here. It could be championship number 5 between you two guys. So I'm going to go with the Nomad Dalton Garrett first and talk about the announcement here and what it means to you to be a part of the Nonstop Action Wrestling Nuclear Winter's Winter Rumble next Saturday.
It's always nice to break into new territory. I say I'm not a newcomer to the industry. I've been around for 25 years, and it's always nice to find a new place to come and ply my trade. It's always nice to get in front of a new bunch of fans and excite and electrify like only I can. At the end of the day, I really, really do believe my best talking is done in the squared circle. So, yeah, I'm quite happy to hand over to Charlie at this point.
I'll ask you the same question then, Mr. Champagne Charlie. I mean, talk about being a part of the Rumble and God.
Sort of mirroring what Dalton said, but it's great. It's always great, coming into a new territory, see it being part, performing for a new audience, so working with new talent. You're just plenty of opportunities every time you go to a new territory. So it's like a rejuvenation of what you're doing every time you enter a new territory. So every time you go to a new territory and work for a new audience, it's always exciting. The not exactly the fear of the unknown, but almost the excitement of the unknown, shall we say?
You never know.
I agree with that. I have to say I agree with that. I'm really looking forward to hearing the roar of the fans when we get to the Sheffield Arts Centre. I mean, I just think it's going to be off the hook.
Whether they like us or whether they don't, getting a reaction, we get our job done. That's all that really matters.
Oh, I totally agree with you there, Charlie. I mean, at the end of the day, mate, whether we're painted as the good guys or whether we're painted as the bad guys, I really don't care. I really want to get my hands on Dan Robertson That
Join-
mealy son
I'm
of a bitch
gonna
with
get to
running
Dan.
his mouth.
I am gonna get to Dan Robertson, the cult of Killjoy. I promise you, I'm gonna get to you because I think over the past 4 or 5 months, it doesn't matter whether it was Gareth Angel, Disciple, anybody else. They certainly are no fans of him. But I'll get to that in a second. I do have some comments, which I want to get to first.
Okay.
Andrew Hanley says, "Good evening, everyone." Of course, Andrew
Good evening,
always is a
Andrew.
big supporter of ours, and
Hey,
of
Andrew, how
course,
you doing, brother?
somebody who's already bought a ticket to watch you guys next Saturday there in Swinton is, of course, Michael Knowles, who's been with us here over the past several shows when it comes to nonstop action wrestling. And he says, while I'm
Hey,
attending,
Michael, how you doing, brother?
How's it
while
going?
I'm attending, can't wait to see it. And not gonna lie, a reason I wanted to go was Disciple, but you guys also piqued my interest. Hope you shut Dan up. Killjoy's ass, please. Okay, well, we'll certainly we'll get to that. We'll definitely get to
Michael,
that.
have you not seen the size of my fist, brother? This is made
I
for
saw,
shutting people
I saw
up.
some of your videos, and I'm like, Dan Robertson, I've got to know you the past several months, and I was skeptical when he was going on about how he wanted Tommy Dillon to beat Disciple, and then when I saw him kind of running, his mouth a little, and I like Dan Robertson, don't get me wrong, but when I saw him going off on you guys, and I'm like, look at this guy's size. Are you sure you want to do that? But I'm sure Mr. Robertson will have a lot to say about that in a second. But, you guys said something interesting, and I promise we'll come to the match itself in a second, but you guys have been in a lot of different places. You guys have had a lot of success elsewhere. And I'm curious in what would your expectations be, let's say next Saturday versus, let's say it's some other places that you guys have wrestled in. I'll go with the Nomad Dalton Garrett first.
I don't go in with any expectations. I'm a firm believer in whatever happens, happens. But as I said, I've been doing this a long time. I have faith in my ability. I have put away big names. I have worked with some of the biggest names in the industry. I've worked alongside Jody Fleisch, Zach Knight, Roy Knight. I've worked alongside Nick Aldis. I've worked alongside some huge names. And to be fair, I don't take any match lightly. When you get between those ropes, it's true. Anything can happen. But I'm just that confident in mine and Charlie's ability. I wouldn't be tagging with the man if I didn't think he had caliber. The fact that he's carrying the Immortal Wrestling Fighting Championship shows this boy's got some caliber about him. Maybe under my wing, he can ascend to the lofty heights that I'm currently perched upon. And this is what I'm hoping to do. I would like to give back to the industry that's given me so much over the last 25 years.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, if you don't mind. I'll come back to Champagne Charlie in a second, and I will get to Michael Knowles again, and Dan Robertson is in the house. But you mentioned some really big-time names. You obviously mentioned the Knight family. You also mentioned Nick Aldis, which for a guy like me, an American, I'm going to know those guys. I've watched Nick Aldis. I watched from the very beginning when he was in original TNA. We're going 13, 14 years ago. I mean, so you mentioned
Doug Williams as well.
Sure, of course, I know Doug Williams very well. I mean, so a lot of these names, even a guy like, let's say, some of my listeners that might not know you guys, but they know me because I cover wrestling, and they're going to, wow, okay, the Nomad Dalton Garrett has been in the ring with those guys. So I'm not going to ask you in terms of like what it was like with those guys, but I'm going to ask you a different question. And then when you wrestle those guys who have had that kind of success, how do you use that in terms of, let's say, giving back to the younger wrestlers who you might be in a locker room with, let's say, next Saturday?
That's a really, really good question.
It really is, actually. Yeah.
Never, ever stop learning in this business. There is always something else that you can glean from other talent. The only way you get better in this business is by working with the caliber of talent that I've mentioned already. It's just the only way it can be done. You can go to all the seminars, and, I've worked with the likes of Johnny Storm. Guy knows a lot, but unless you actually get in there, lace up your boots and work the man, a lot of times words get lost in translation, things get lost. He can explain till he's blue in the face, but until you're there and you've got your hands on him and he's got his hands on you, you can't quite get the gist of it. So working with the caliber of the guys that I have, it just makes you better.
Okay, that's kind of what I kind of thought anyway. And for you, Champagne Charlie, obviously you've had some success in some other places, and you're holding gold currently. So I'm going to ask you the same question. I mean, what are your expectations then next Saturday, let's say at Nonstop Action Wrestling versus, let's say, whether it's Immortal Wrestling or anywhere else you've wrestled?
Here's the thing: when you go into a new territory, if you can't get any expectations in your head because you don't know whether if when you go to a place it's going to go out how you expect, or
Sure.
so the idea is to go there and see it as a clean slate, clean canvas, so to speak. And it depends on what level of job that you do that makes it a good experience whilst you're there. And it's the same for everyone in the business, no matter what level in the business you are. At the end of the day, professional wrestling, we are a community, right? And
Absolutely.
we need to try and work with each other. We may not always get along with each other, but at the end of the day, we all share the same passion for this business. So it's important to try to put the right amount of work in, and respecting this business goes hand in hand with that.
Absolutely, no question about that. I could not agree further. And well said. And let me get to Michael Knowles first before I do bring up Dan Robertson. Michael also says Horace is great, but Dan, please kick his butt. While you're at it, please shove his head up Killjoy's behind, which he spends so much talking about anyway. All right, well, I have a feeling that that's going to occur. And of course, the man is with us. He's in the house. That is
Oh,
the
God.
Cult of Killjoy, Dan Robertson. He says, love you guys too. So now I give you guys the opportunity. You've obviously heard the comments by now, what Mr. Roberts has had to say about you guys. It's been the talk of social media, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's anywhere else that I'm sure the word has traveled. And I'm going to go with Champagne Charlie first because I'm looking at you because I know Dalton's going to have a ton to say, and he's going to come back because I'm sure he's got some technical difficulties. So, Champagne Charlie, I mean, it's your chance. You have the floor. And what would you now like to say to the Cult of Killjoy, Dan Robertson?
I find it very, very comical. Saying that I love you too. That the biggest backtrack I've probably ever seen in my life, considering the trash he's been talking for the last couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know what is worse: the fact that he's cashing checks that he can't fill out properly by going on and on and on, or the fact that he's a weedy little. I don't even want to say the word, but who can't even get along with the guy that he's supposed to be teaming with. So
I can't see how he expects to work a tag match when he can't work with the person standing in his corner. It's the only way they're going to have a chance against the likes of you and me. They're not coming up against two snot noses. They're not coming up against two guys who are fresh out of academy training. They're coming up against two veterans of the ring.
Yeah, two big men who are quite frankly annoyed with Dan Robertson. I myself, I'm 6'2", I'm 222 pounds. Okay, that is not something right to get riled up. And then you take a guy like Dalton, for example.
I'm 6 foot and I'm 320 pounds.
Listen, you make Charlie a little small. I mean, listen, you're a big man, Mr. Garrett. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to get on your bad side. And we are near the Christmas season, so you know that you definitely don't want to get a lump of coal in your stockings by certainly messing with you, sir. I mean, yeah, I see the muscles. I mean, you certainly are one of the more bigger men in the UK scene. I put you right up there with the likes of Big T, and I put you up there with the likes of Mustafa Khan and your size Disciple, obviously our champion in GT Ministries. But no, you guys definitely, would not be ones I'd want to mess with. And Dalton Garrett, I give you the floor.
There's not much between me and Damien. If you're familiar with Damien, there's not much between me and him.
I mean, listen, let me ask you a different question than Nomad Dalton Garrett. I mean, when you have a guy like, somebody in a Dan Robertson who's saying these different things, do you think is it a wise strategy? Is it a strategy that you think is maybe reverse psychology? I mean, why do you think he's taking that tactic?
I think it is. That's exactly what I think it is. He's trying to get in mine and Charlie's head and plant a seed of doubt. You can't do that with guys like us. We know what we can do. We've been there. We've done it with bigger and better people than him. And he's trying to get in here. You can't mess with cerebral assassins, which is exactly what Charlie and I are. So talk the talk, brother. But when it comes to the day, you've got to walk the walk. And I'm sorry, I got bigger boots than you, bro.
I mean,
jump in.
I mean, I'll say this, right? I've been scouting the talent to non-stop package radio because that is what a true student of the game is supposed to do. Know your opponent.
I've been too busy working on the bikes, bruv. You do you.
Yeah, like I said, I've seen what young Horace can do. I'm actually very impressed with young Horace. And with young Horace, like as I said in my post yesterday, this was just business. But now with Dan Robinson running his mouth, it's now going to become a personal pleasure, right, knocking him down.
And I have a few comments, and let me just get right to them. I have Dan Robertson with us, and I'll get to Michael Knowles first.
Okay, here we go. There we go.
Yeah, we're gonna get to it. Let me get to Michael first because I like to give almost the appetizer. And let's be honest, they've said it all. He talks the talk, but don't know how to walk the walk. Yep. Well, Dan Robertson does have something to say, and he says, "Hey, Little Egypt is talented. He's an amazing in-ring talent. It's just sometimes he needs to open his ears." And I mean, you say I haven't got in your head, but you talk a lot about me. What would you guys like to say to that?
Charlie, you want to go first, bro?
Listen, we're only answering the questions, right? It's not like we want to talk about you, but sadly, this is what the case of the show is, okay? You're our opponent, and after Nuclear Winter's over, you won't even be a footnote in our diaries, okay?
I agree. At the end of the day, brother, we didn't pick you as an opponent. We were told we were working you. If I was picking an opponent, dude, you wouldn't even make the top 100. So we may be talking about you, but that's only in the context of what we've been given. If this was any other day of the week, Dan, you know, I wouldn't know you if I fell over you in the street, mate.
Yeah. I mean, the smart ass emo kid gimmick may work for you and your snot-nosed friends there, but when it comes to men of our age and our experience, okay, you're going to have to play a different card, okay?
I'm not being funny, but I mean, I've seen this dude's arms, and I think my fingers are bigger than this guy's arms. So I just
sure you didn't play listen, are you sure the Nomad Dalton Garrett, like you didn't try to play in the NBA or something? Because like you're really big. I mean, you could have definitely been like the UK version of Shaquille O'Neal. That's how big you look right now tonight.
I wish I had his money, brother. That's about it.
I think that makes all three of us. But I want to ask you before I get to Michael again, and I've got more comments, and I'll try to get to as many of them as I can here. But you said something interesting at the top, and I want to talk about this because I've heard this from other wrestlers who've addressed Dan Robertson, whether it was Gareth Angel himself in the ring, whether it was Slugger Hampton, who you guys originally were going to be in the ring with. Disciple said this last week. I've heard other wrestlers, Bentley, say this as well. But when you have your experience, you know, Matt Dalton, you've got 3 championships currently, 25 years in the business, and you have somebody, again, no disrespect to anybody, in a Dan Robertson who's been in the ring for a relatively short time. Do you look at it as like somebody who's not paid his dues or somebody that's almost a new kid on the block that's trying to make a name off you? And, you know, how does that make you feel?
I think there's some truth to what you said there. At the end of the day, whenever you carry a strap in the wrestling business, that automatically paints a target on your back. And you will get young guys who want your feather in their cap because you're a name. And if they can put you down and they can pin you, that really, really sort of works well for them. That's you know, it's bragging rights at the end of the day. Let's be honest, we're in the business of bragging rights. I just think in this instance, Dan Roberts bitten off more than he can chew.
Oh, he very well might have. And let me get to another comment from Michael Knowles. I wouldn't be surprised if Horace leaves you outnumbered, Dan. That's what you'll do. Lumber. Okay, lumber. Well, I thought he meant to say numbered, but all right. But I wouldn't be surprised if Horace leaves you lumbered, Dan. Oh, wait, that's what you'll do. Like I said, when you were on Sportswire, you're a coward. Couldn't even face young Horace yourself, like I said. Also want to give a mention to our friend from CCW, Taylor Truths. We're going to have more CCW coverage coming up this Monday with Hybrid, who's going to be in the ring against Jack Bartley for their world championship in CCW. So looking forward to that. And Taylor says the youth are
always
hungry
a great
to take.
Show. Always a great show. CCW, always a great show.
I love, CCW. I'm big fans of CCW. We talk CCW here on Sportswire for several months. In fact, I'm going to say this, and Taylor will really appreciate this because I love almost everybody in that locker room. Many months back when there was a little bit of things that were going on, a firestorm there, people had asked me, they said, you know what, maybe you shouldn't talk CCW. I brought on James Barris, the owner of the company there, and I said it for the public. I said, CCW, will always have my support. So CCW, every company that is doing something to make a difference in the lives of people and give wrestlers an opportunity will always have my full support.
Absolutely.
Do you know
but I
what?
want to
There's a
ask.
lot
Yeah,
of companies out there doing exactly that. There's a lot of companies out there doing exactly that, giving people a chance. It's very, very easy for people on the outside to talk smack. That, you know, I've had my fair share of running with smarks. Unfortunately, they're an occupational hazard, and there's always people.
Well, I'm gonna make you
there.
feel. I'm
Actually-
gonna make you feel happy real quick.
Actually-
one of the things. God, jump in.
So can I just say that? Yeah. Dalton, should I tell him the story of what happened when we went out into London that one time?
Go for your life, mate.
Here's what happened, man.
Oh,
We decided to just get some stuff for our socials and to boost, our following. We went out into London. We went out into London and met the public, got pictures, showed off our titles, etc., etc. And then we got, this guy came up to us, this young guy, and
Trafalgar Square,
yeah. And he starts running off on his phone. He goes, "Oh, I'm here with these two big fake wrestlers." Right?
What?
And he says, "Do you want to show us some moves?" So Dalton, being the big giant man that he is, press slams this guy over his head, and makes him scream like a little girl. I then put him on the floor afterwards and put him into a figure 4, and then afterwards he shakes our hand and says, "Thank you for doing that. I was actually doing a documentary," and he shows us the cameraman up on the stairwell of the of Trafalgar Square. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well, I was going to say, one of the things I was about to say that certainly I'm glad you told that story before we get to some more comments is one of the things I try to do when it comes to wrestling, whether it's at this level or it's any other level, if somebody tells me they know what's going to happen or do you want to know, I tell them, please don't tell me. I really want to watch it just to let it happen like a movie. I have wrestlers that I won't say names, always say, hey, I'll tell you what happens. You want to know what'll happen in my match? I say, no. I always say please. I always say please don't.
You've always got to let it happen organically. You've
Absolutely
got to happen in the ring.
Because you know what? It gives because it puts everybody on the same playing field, and it shows that there's a level of trust and respect. So I always want to make sure that.
Sadly, that's what I hate to say that, but the dirt sheets are one of the main bad things in wrestling, unfortunately.
100%. I think that's spoiled wrestling. I tell you what, they don't listen. They don't tell you what happened. They don't spoil the World Cup. They don't spoil a movie when you go watch a movie, right? I mean, so to me, I hate that. I want to know. I want to watch it and organically watch the match or whatever it might be that you guys are doing. So we're on the same page on that. And I do have a bunch of comments. So let jump in.
The problem with dirt sheets and the problem with mainstream media in general is whatever they're reporting doesn't even have to be true. They just have to be first to report it.
Right,
so they put stuff out there that may not even have a shred of truth to it, just to beat the punch, just to be the first to report it. I mean, I've had friends actually fall victim to the dirt sheets. Soraya, she's had a terrible time in the dirt sheets, and she's one of the sweetest human beings you would ever want to meet. I'm telling you, she is the sweetest person you'll ever lay your eyes on.
This man actually has the experience. Like I said, he knows the Knights very, very well, and he just
I've been working with the Knights for almost 10 years.
Wow. Okay, that's really, really impressive. I mean, I have all the utmost respect and adoration for all of them. But I have some comments, and I want to get to that because I could talk about the Knights all day, but I'm here for you guys and your match coming up. So let me get to. So we're going to first of all go with Dan Robertson's back. So I'll get to Taylor Truce in a second. But Dan Robertson says this. Well, listen here. Tyson Fury from Wish, bigger, they're harder, they fall. Your belts are nice, yes, but this ain't about your belts. This is about you sneaking into Killjoy country. And me, and to a lesser extent, young Horace, will cut you down like a tree. But Champagne, I'm making sure you meet the Killjoy. And also, it'll be a hell of a fight, boys. Bring your A game. We'll bring ours. What's your guys' response?
5 minutes.
I don't know how.
That's all I can say.
I don't know how, with everything that Dan has said over the last few weeks, how he's contemplating standing across a ring from young Horace. I don't know how this guy doesn't think it's going to go like Cleopatra and he's not going to end up with a dagger in his back. I really don't know how he... I really don't know how he thinks he's going to work with this guy. have been around Charlie for a while now, and I trust this man with my life. I trust him to watch my back.
Absolutely.
And he knows full well
Likewise.
I've got his. So there's going to be no funny business during our match. He's covered and I'm covered. Dan, you've not got 2 opponents in this match. You've potentially given yourself 3.
Interesting.
Here's what I think. It's coming to the point now where Dan Robinson or Killjoy, whatever he wants to call himself, this Jekyll Hyde wannabe,
Buzzkill.
Right? Exactly.
Buzzkill.
Has really gotten under my skin to the point where I want to throttle the little, And listen, it's coming to the point. I have no problem with Horace. I actually might go up to Horace and say, "You've got 5 seconds. Walk away now, and leave this guy to be fed to the lions." Okay.
Well, that's a good point.
I may pin Dan Robinson's arms to his side and let Horace go to town on him.
You know what? I mean, listen, I would certainly be, if I'm Mr. Robertson, you better have a plan. And for whatever reason, when you guys brought up the Jekyll and Hyde reference, I thought for Mr. Robertson's case for next Saturday, it almost reminds me a little bit. There's a Ozzy Osbourne song called Mr. Jekyll Doesn't Hide. And something tells me that next Saturday, that Mr. Jekyll is not going to be able to hide he's across the apron from you guys.
He's got spit, okay? Absolute spit, so...
And I have a few more comments, so first let me get to them. Michael also says here, Horace will chop them down like a tree coward, won't even fight you himself. Like I said, coward. Taylor Truth says, I always say don't tell me anything as I like the raw experience at ringside.
Exactly,
Absolutely. Michael also says, I beg Dan, go in a figure 4, would love him not to walk again.
It can be arranged. It can be arranged.
And Mr. Robertson does have a response for you guys. He says, trust me, I got a big plan up my sleeve. Do you guys,
what sleeves?
You guys concerned about that? Well, there is a point, though. But let me take the objective point of view, and let's say Dan Robertson is very methodical. I've covered him. I've had him on the show 3 or 4 different times. I've seen him. He was able to get himself in the ring with Gareth Angel and later on Jack Johnson. So he certainly has accomplished something. I've seen him here and what he's done in nonstop action wrestling. He actually got himself out of a match with young Horace. And now that's the reason why he's in a tag team with him at the last show, All Hallows Eve. Would you guys be concerned to the fact that maybe there is something between now and next Saturday that you guys might be playing into the hands of Mr. Robertson, and maybe there's something there that you guys may not know about to, let's say, I don't know, even the playing field for him? Because obviously your size and his size, it's a no-brainer. But when he says a comment like that, is that something that you say, you know what, maybe you guys pay attention to?
No, again, it's mind games. Unless he's got a Dillon M134 minigun, he ain't stopping me.
Listen, it wouldn't be a Christmas time without a surprise. So whatever he wants to bring, we'll bring it bigger.
And if you are listening and watching us on Sportswire Radio, we are now back on sportnarium.com/play, which is our radio feed. So thank you for that to be fixed. And if you like Nonstop Action Wrestling, I hope everybody follows Nonstop Action Wrestling on YouTube at Nonstop Action Wrestling, Instagram, where you can watch the show like me, an American, who can watch the whole show. And I'm excited, guys, because I bought a tripod, which means now I don't have. Right.
Click and subscribe. Do it now.
Click and subscribe. But also, I'm excited because I can watch the entire show, not like this with my hand. I can put my phone on my tripod and watch it from the comfort of my own seat. So I'm excited about that. You can do that on Instagram at NSAW Wrestling UK, YouTube Nonstop Action Wrestling, YouTube also Nonstop Action Wrestling Universe, and also NSAW Wrestling _ UK on Twitter. And of course, please follow the guys Champagne Charlie and the Nomad Dalton Garrett. Nomad Dalton Garrett is also on Facebook as well. And my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. I am the host of the Sports Report, and I am the owner of Sportswire Radio. And I have a few more comments, guys, so let me get to them. First, I have Casey Jack Bradley, a young trainee, says good evening. And then I have a guy that I'm sure you guys have heard of or paid attention to a little bit of late. He is the lawman, Kyle Kennedy. He is back with us next Friday. We call him Mr. Sportswire here. He was for a brief period the Nonstop Action Wrestling World-Class Champion. And his line to you guys is, don't underestimate the Wrestle Kids. What would you like to say to that, gentlemen?
I'd never underestimate anybody. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, I don't know everything,
Sure,
and
sure.
they may know something I don't, and that may catch me off guard. But at this point in my career, I'm way, way, way long in the tooth. And if they do have something I may not have seen before, I may not know what it is, but I may know something that may counter what they've got. At the end of the day, as I said, I don't take anything for granted here. I don't underestimate anybody because, you know, this is an unpredictable sport we're in. It absolutely is. You know, I know guys who have got in a ring and they've left on a stretcher and they've never walked again. You
Sure.
cannot take anything.
You know, it's funny
as
you said that.
routine.
It's funny you said that. And I'll come back to Charlie in a second. I had on a wrestler on Monday here, who's actually has a neck injury, has a cervical injury, and we were actually talking about that because he was injured in the ring a few months back for a company that we do some work with here in the States. And you know, I was asking him, well, you know, you go out there, you had this injury, you're planning to come back next year. Are you concerned that this could happen at a more further level? And he said, well, you just go out there and it's you just kind of just go out there and hope for the best.
It's an occupational hazard. I mean, you really do have to put your body in the hands of your opponent. You really do. And trust plays such a big part in what we do.
For you, Champion Charlie,
I trust non-stop action wrestling wouldn't have put us in this match if they thought we were going to get hurt.
Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I agree with that. And I do think that Dan Robertson and Young Horace are very talented wrestlers. I've had a chance to watch them in the ring. I've had both of them on. And I believe that they are up-and-coming stars. But for you, Champagne Charlie, obviously, what's your response to what the lawman Kyle Kennedy says here?
I mean, he may know something that we don't. And listen, we're always happy to be enlightened or proven wrong if needs be. Listen, I mentioned before, I've scouted the talent. I see what young Horace can do, and he's actually very, very impressive. There's no doubt about that. From Dan Robertson, Killjoy or Buzzkill, whatever it is, all he's showing me right now is nothing but mouth. Okay, and like I said,
I want to hear that chant. I want to hear that chant. Buzzkill. Buzzkill. I want to hear that chant.
Here's the thing,
and non-stop action wrestling. So everyone who's watching, I want to hear it.
But here's the thing, right? The management of non-stop action wrestling know what we're capable of, okay? They obviously know we're capable of putting on the best show possible. They wouldn't have booked us otherwise. They see this, and they see what's in the background there with Dalton. So they recognize the skills, they recognize the talent, and they recognize what we can bring to a show.
Oh, no question about that. You guys definitely bring a lot to the table, and it is a tremendous honor to have you guys. So certainly I want to make sure people can talk to you as well, because it's not about me all the time. It's about the people.
Thank you to Mr. Kennedy for the advice, though.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
Any advice that comes in is advice I'm willing to take.
Okay, I would tell you that the lawman Kyle Kennedy, I'm a big fan of his work. I know that non-stop action wrestling, a lot of people, especially a lot of the fans, aren't big fans of him. But I'm telling you, this guy, he's a young superstar. He's quick in the ring. He's big for his size, and he's a good talker.
I've seen him. I was about to say he's a big guy. I could probably see him being a good match down the line for Dalton. Actually,
I tell you what, he held his own in a Rumble a few months back with Gareth Angel. I've seen what he can do in the ring, Kyle Kennedy, and he's got my full endorsement.
So that's a match I'd pay money to see.
I listen. You know what? I think people want to pay to see you guys coming up here next Saturday, and I've got some comments, so let me make sure I work them in. Casey Bradley says Champagne Charlie should have his own brand, a little bit of the bubbly. Well, maybe that could be something in the works. Michael Knowles says, let's be honest, he is nothing but mouth. And this individual, who I believe I actually know who this individual is, but I won't say who he is, but he's somebody I have a feeling will be on the card next Saturday, says here, this match might be the surprise hit of the night. For you guys, when you hear a comment like that, let's go on a different tack, because I've got the whole back and forth with Robertson in a second. But, this is a match, and I think I said this with Robertson himself, and I'm sure we'll have more coverage next week of Nonstop Action Wrestling. We'll have Callum and Jake still be in the house, Kyle Kennedy as well. And I kind of feel like this is going to be an under-the-radar type of match, because it's almost two extremes. You have obviously Dan Robertson and Young Horus, who might be more, let's say, versatile type wrestlers, where they're going to have the aerial game. They're going to be high flyers. And you
Oh, for
guys are
sure.
pretty much the straight, like, butt kickers, the straight, just stop aggression. You're just basically ass kickers. Do you feel like in a lot of ways that maybe this match isn't getting the respect it's getting compared to the other matches on the card?
Well, I suppose the way I see it, a lot of people are looking at this as a mismatch. And from plain view, they may be right. But here's the thing. Like I said, I've been impressed with what I've seen, okay? So just because there's a size difference doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a walk in the park, okay? With Dan Robinson, maybe. But young Horace, I'm sure he knows how to bring it, okay? But like I said, a job is a job. It doesn't matter what size they are, who they are, what shape, what size, what color. You sign the paper on the dotted line, you sign the names to the dotted line, and we're coming there with the intent to take them down, no matter who they are. Okay.
I think a lot of people look at me and Charlie and they're like, what are these guys doing in a tag team? What possibly do these guys have in common? What middle ground is there between them? I'll tell you now, mutual respect.
Absolutely.
I've seen Charlie work and Charlie's seen me work. I know that I can make up for Charlie's shortcomings, and there aren't many of them. I'm going to be honest with you. The guy has got a very well-rounded game, but there are some areas where the power could just be that little bit higher. That's where I come in.
All right, that makes sense. Now, listen, I don't think there is too many negatives or any flaws in both you guys' games. I'm going to be straight up on that. I would be hard-pressed to believe that, but I have some comments, and I like to be able to get as many comments as I can because people want to talk to you. Nonstop Action Wrestling management has tuned in and says, we brought you gents in to do what you do best, and that's wrestle. Put on a fantastic show along with your opponents. We wish you all the best of luck. And I want to bring in also one of my favorites who's going to be in the main event of the show. That is the GT Ministries World Champion. His name is Disciple.
I know him very well.
Yep, and that's why I wanted to bring him in, because he says, good evening, gents. And, of course, Disciple, who, by the way, I want to point out, has the best spine buster in the business. I've seen it firsthand. I'm aware of it. I wanted to remind you in a respectful way. Go ahead, jump in.
That's quite a broad. That's quite a big claim. You've not seen my spine buster yet, bro.
No. Well, I have to say we have had Disciple on probably at this point 6 or 7 times, and what I saw him do to Gareth Angel, what I've seen him do to Bentley, what I've seen him do to pretty much what he attempted to do to Tommy Dillon, I'm sure that I'll certainly give you a tie for first with Disciple Spinebuster by the time I see you next Saturday, but for the time being, he has been very impressive, Disciple. That's what I'm going to say.
Oh, no doubt. The guy's got chops. The guy really he's got it all.
With Disciple, like I said, I've known him I've not seen him the longest time, but I've known the guy, if I would say, about the same amount of time I've actually been in the business. I was a fan when I first met him. This was before I even made it to the ring. And I've seen him firsthand. The guy knows how to brawl. I met him at, sadly, the now defunct Tap Out Wrestling, which
I believe I spoke about that in the past.
Which was a company in Surrey, I believe, that kind of thing. And he was making great strides there. I'm glad to see that he is still making strides in other parts of the country. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in this title versus title match with him and Tommy Dillon. I've been paying attention. I've been watching the feeds and stuff. So so I know it's gonna. Every time you get 2 champions going head to head with each other, it's always exciting.
Oh, for sure. The stakes can't be higher, can they? Let's be honest.
Listen, I gotta listen. And Disciple has something to say, and I have Chris Murphy, another guy who's become a favorite of mine, also won some gold this past weekend. And
good
this
old
is
Chris.
To me. Yeah, I knew this was coming. Listen, I feel like this is your life once again here on Sportswire Radio. But
this
is your life, and that's just reminds me of. But I want to say this about this match, and we'll come back to you guys in a second. And obviously, some of the guys have some comments toward you guys. Anyway, so this will tie in. There's very few matches that I've thought of, and I've done a lot of coverage of professional wrestling, especially in the UK in the past year. There's very few matches that I say, you know what? This match has legitimate high-stakes drama to it because you have one company's champion and another company's champion. And on
Oh
top of that,
yeah.
almost two polar extremes of how they represent their companies right now. This match, to me, in a lot of ways, I really think, and I think I said this on Sportswire last week, and I've even said this on other shows, is to me, this is the match that I think when you're going to remember UK wrestling this year in 22, in terms of just some of the big matches, I really believe that Tommy Dillon and Disciple is going to be one of those matches that you're going to remember at the top of the list. That's how
Oh yeah.
excited I am
Yeah.
about this match.
Listen, every time you get, like I said, you get champions, it's always going to be something that you remember. I mean, you look at something nearly 50 years ago when Harley Race met superstar Billy Graham. They were both champions for different
Listen, Bob
countries.
Backlund and Ric Flair, I think, met for the WWF title and the NWA title. I want to say it was in 1981, I believe, and they went to, I think, a draw, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
so
every time
it's happened.
Yeah, so it has happened many, many times. So this to have this happen at a event here in the UK, two great champions of two great up and coming companies, it's going to be exciting thing to watch.
Oh, definitely.
No question about that. And let me get to a few comments
Again,
first.
when you've got two alpha males from two opposing companies, neither one of them want to give a bad showing because they're there for their promotion.
Right.
And a bad showing on the night could actually reflect badly on the company. Nobody ever wants to actually let their side down. So when you get two alpha males in a match like this, mate, the stakes are off the chart.
Quoting Frankie Goes to Hollywood, when two tribes go to war.
I know Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So we actually play music on my radio feed. So actually, we have like a automated set of music in a lot of its 80s. I probably should, because you know what? I've had in the rotation for the past 2 years now Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. So people are like, every time I go off the air on the radio, it's always Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer. So, but be that as it may, Disciple also wants to remind, I believe you, Mr. Garrett, that happy to prove on you that I have the best spine buster. So certainly. That might be challenge accepted. I want to bring in Chris Murphy.
We'll get a couple of trainees, bro, and we'll just go to town.
Well, listen, I'm sure there's quite a few you can pick out.
They're disposable.
Well, in GT Ministries and Nonstop Action Wrestling, I'm sure you can pick them out. Oh, listen, I'm sure that is definitely going to happen. Who knows? Chris Murphy, of course, who certainly I'm a big fan of. He's been with us here a couple different times, and he won some gold last week, and want to congratulate him on that. Says, hello there, guys. See you both in the Rumble next week, and will be nice to throw you both over. I want to transition back to that in a second, because we spoke about Robertson.
Chris.
I want to transition into
this.
Not
a good idea calling out the champs. Okay, so.
Oh, he's got gold also, though. He does have gold also. He's holding a couple of titles as well. He's a big man. He certainly has proven himself since his return to wrestling.
I'm just gonna say one thing, Chris. Go back to the BECW days, brother. Do you remember how things went between you and me there? You were looking at the lights then, and you'll be looking at the lights again, brother. You'll be over that ring, over that top rope, laying on the mats, looking at the lights, bro. That's it.
All I'll say to it is have your car running, because you're going to be getting into it literally 30 seconds after you come in. So
I haven't heard that one before. So I guess that you're basically telling him, put the keys in the car, keep him in there for the engine so you can go able to drive back.
Keep the car running, brother. It's a long drive back to London. just keep the engine running. Save yourself the ag.
Can I also say one thing on a separate side point? Which is the Nomad's gonna you may or not kill me for this, but I noticed that you're a big Star Wars fan, and of course, Mr. Murphy is very huge in some of those communities. Anything you want to share on that on a lighter note that maybe you and Mr. Murphy share some common ground on?
I've got nothing but respect for everything this guy does in the Star Wars community. Nobody does.
He's like massive. He's like massive. He's like
nobody
huge.
does more for the Star Wars community. I think about the only people that I know that maybe do a little more is Elstree Base, the 501st Legion, who do all the troopings for Comic Cons.
Vader's Fist.
Yeah, that's the one. So, the UK 501st Legion, Elstree Base, these guys are phenomenal. Their costumes are next level. But yeah, Chris, honestly, mate, I'll give respect where it's due. You do a lot for the Star Wars community, and I've got nothing but respect for you for that, brother.
All right, well, that's certainly good, and certainly I'm sure that Mr. Murphy appreciates that, which he does. Says, thank you guys, really do appreciate that. I want to come back to the Rumble though in a second, and I have a comment I know from Michael about Robertson, but I get the theme here on Robertson, but I want to ask you guys this question because obviously you guys have 4 belts between you, and I kind of alluded to it, but in this Rumble, obviously only one of you are going to walk away with this and have that number one contendership to see whoever comes out of the Disciple and Tommy Dillon predicament there that we'll see at the main event. I mean, how do you guys approach it? I mean, what if you guys are in the Rumble at the same time? There is that possibility. I mean, what's your thoughts on the situation?
Look, Dalton's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and he knows pretty hand. Business is business, okay. When you're against each other in that ring, like with me and him, we're friends, but you have to put the friendship aside, okay. We're there simply to do a job, and we're there to basically take what we want. And what we want at this point is a shot at whoever the champion is going to be after Nuclear Winter. Okay, so if I have to dump Dalton out to do that, then I will do that. I'm sure he's thinking the same thing if it comes to me. Okay,
absolutely. Business is business. I didn't actually know we were both in the Rumble until we actually came on here. Tom, you were the one who actually broke that news to me. I was under the impression that I'd been asked. Charlie hadn't.
Why would they not ask me? Yeah.
Well, I didn't know either. Listen, I have to be straight up. I was kind of like, I took a nap and then I woke up and it was like, I go on Instagram and by luck, I go on Instagram because normally I wouldn't have done it. And I see a video on the Nonstop Action Wrestling Instagram page, which by the way, you can watch Nuclear Winter on next Saturday at NSOR Wrestling UK. And I see you. And then like about a minute later, I see you. And then you guys are both in this Rumble. And I was like, I guess we're going to have to talk about this on Sportswire.
Well, here's the
Absolutely.
thing. We're there, to do a match anyway. So it seems logical to get good use out of us while we're there. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise...
That's exactly where the point I was coming from. I mean, at the end of the day, we're both going to be there. If they ask me, I'm not going to say I was surprised that Charlie was entered into the Rumble. It just makes logical sense. Am I going to change my game plan now that I know he's going to be in there? Absolutely not. And if it comes down to him and me being the final two, we know the score.
Absolutely.
He wants to up the gold he's carrying, and I've always got room for one more. Always got room for one more. So at the end of the day, we'll do what needs to be done. But rest assured, after that match, there's going to be no bad blood. It is just business. Absolutely. And if he does end up going on to win the Rumble, I wish him nothing but the best. And if he needs me, I've got his corner for his title match.
He's got my back. I've got his. You know what I mean? That's just how it goes.
Let me ask you then both a follow-up question because I find this interesting. And, of course, if you like what you hear from the Nomad, Dalton Garrett, and Champagne Charlie, please follow them on Instagram at @the_Nomad Wrestler. Also, Champagne Charlie Vintage 92 on Instagram. Please follow the guys. The guys do a phenomenal job in everything they do for professional wrestling. We always want to support our own here on Sportswire Radio. But you guys said a couple different interesting things, and I see the mutual respect. So is the goal more to the fact, hey, you know what? Okay, fine. You win it or I win it. Okay. But the goal between the two of you is to collect belt number 5 between you two guys. Is that more of kind of the vested interest to say, you know what? Long as one of us wins the Rumble, that we go on to face and pick up the pieces of whatever is left between Disciple and Dillon. And it's almost you two guys win. I would have to think you guys would be one of the favorites. And certainly if one of you wins the Rumble, I mean, Disciple and Dillon are going to be in trouble. I think especially Dillon more than Disciple because Dillon's had a tenuous run to begin with and it technically ended for a brief period. So is that kind of where you guys come at it more for the fact, you know what, long as one of us wins the Rumble, we're pretty confident we'll have belt number 5 between the two of us?
Yeah, because I think with our combined talents, and we everyone in that Rumble needs to be watching themselves. Okay, just keep your eye over your shoulder constantly. Because here's the thing: even though we're both big men, we've got the brawn, but we've got the brains to back it up as well. So
absolutely, I may look dense, but I'm not.
No, I wouldn't trust that year dense at all. You see, you have 25 years experience, and I think Champion Charlie's done pretty good in his own right. So I have to think that you guys by far are going to have the experience in that Rumble. But Chris Murphy does have a comment, and I want to bring up Mr. Murphy because Chris is obviously tuned in. He's going to be there with you, and he says maybe instead of throwing you both over, we could team up as we're all champions. We might as well take over. And so that's
interesting. That is a very interesting proposition.
That is a very interesting proposition. Chris, I've known you a lot of years, and I've always thought you've had the props, mate. But it's just never been the right time for us to put anything together. It's not something I'd say no to. We need to sit down and iron out brass tacks.
And who knows, maybe...
I would never say never.
Never say never. And who knows, maybe somewhere down the line in non-stop action wrestling, the first class could become a full-time thing.
Well, I'll tell you this,
big in the wrestling world.
Well, I was going to say, if you look at nonstop action wrestling now, you have the Society, which is made up of the Lawman Kyle Kennedy and Callum Jakester and Mixed Knights, and you also have the Swarm, which JPR is a part of, and you have these different factions. So, look, first class. I mean, you guys with the goal that you guys have between you, I think three of you have 6 championship belts. I mean, that could be something to keep an eye on here on Sportswire Radio. And Michael Knowles also says, I respect the fact you're willing to go against one another. That's how it should be. Well, I mean, look, they're in a Rumble. What are they supposed to do? If you're in a Rumble, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like... it's not gonna. I'm not going to turn around and say, "Oh, it's just us." Out I go. That's not how this is working. Okay. Yeah. What would that make me
do this like? Because we love the competition, and at the end of the day, the more he wrestles me, the more he picks up from me, and the more I wrestle him. He's from the new school. He's got tricks and tips that I don't yet know. Wrestling him is only going to make me better. Every person I share a ring with makes me better.
Dalton and I have talked many times about tangling with each other at some point, whether it's me for this or him for one of his.
Oh, he wants this. He's been on at me for ages that he wants a shot on my my Intercontinental title.
Yeah. So if it happens, it happens. So there we go.
Let me ask you guys another question on the Rumble as we're here on Sportswire Radio with Pro Wrestling Stars here, Champagne Charlie and the Nomad Dalton Garrett. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryson. We are here on Sportswire Radio. And if you like what you hear from us on Facebook, please give us a like on Facebook at Sportswire Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. You can listen to all of our great content on sportnarium.com/play. You guys, I would have to say, in this Rumble, I've got the whole storyline with Robertson and Horace down. I've got that whole situation down. I see where it's going. But in this Rumble here, we have all these different participants, and obviously Robertson will be a part of it. Young Horace, Chris Murphy, we just heard from other people as well. But you guys, I would have to say, in this Rumble, between the two of you, A, have the most experience, and B, have the most gold. Do you feel like going into this, does that automatically make you guys the co-favorites just because of the fact, just on the simple experience and titles that automatically puts you guys at the top here to win this Rumble?
As much as I'd like to say yes, but I'm going to say no, because here's the thing.
Tell me why.
The amount of people that you have in this match, it is very easy for you to lose sight of what you're doing. I could be doing something, and I don't have eyes at the back of my head, okay? So in these type of matches, Rumble matches, Battle Royal matches, whatever you want to call them, they're very, very unpredictable. And sometimes things, you lose control of whatever plan that you have. So, I mean, as much as me and Dalton have got each other's backs, it's very easy in that match for us to get separated and be isolated. And who knows, there may be some people looking there to make a name for themselves right against us, by throwing us out. And if they do, props to them. But we're going to be fighting tooth and nail to make sure that doesn't happen.
Absolutely. This is the one thing that we said we love about professional wrestling. It's such an organic thing. You can't plan for anything like this because in a Rumble, you've got fists and feet and bodies flying everywhere. You can be the most perceptive person on the face of the earth. The wrestler is not the one. The wrestler you can see is not the one you need to fear. It's the one you can't see.
Interesting. I definitely would not have thought of it that way, but that's why you guys are the champions. And let me ask you guys a slightly separate question. And obviously, we'll spend the rest of the show on nonstop action wrestling. But I want to ask you guys, and what does it mean to you guys to be the champions in the respective companies that you are? And what does that mean to your overall careers currently, if you don't mind me asking that question?
Might I go first on this one?
Please go ahead.
For me, it is an important thing because this is actually my first championship. There have been before this year in particular, and there were a lot of people in the business. I'm not going to name names because I'm not that kind of
Yeah,
guy.
don't name names. Please don't name, because I
I
might know
who
them.
really doubted my ability to win a championship. And to be honest, in the past, some of them may have been right. There have been times where I've really doubted myself as well. I've battled with mental health issues. I've battled with issues with weight, in sometimes in my life, but I've
Sure.
managed to maintain that, and there was a long time in the 6 years in this business where I felt I was not going anywhere at all. I was trying to get a rung at the ladder, but nothing happened. It took one or two people to see something in me, see the value in my in my ability and the way I connect with an audience. So they simply said, "Let's give him a chance." And from that chance, I've managed to take it, kind of like planting an acorn in the ground. And from this, this year has really grown into a great, hopefully promising career for me, and hopefully going
You've
into
had
the new
some
year,
really,
to
really
get
good
better.
defenses. You've had some really good defenses at other territories while you've been the fighting champion.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. I'm a big fan of the old school of wrestling, even like the territories, even though it was before
You
my
look
time.
like you could have wrestled in the territories. I mean,
Yeah,
I say this in a nice way. You look.
Yeah, so I take this. I ask if there's any promoters who are interested in me defending this, as long as I run it by the Immortal promoter first, and I'm happy to go anywhere, doesn't matter where it is, and defend this and try and take on some of the new upcoming talent.
Okay, what does it mean for you to know Matt Dalton Garrett?
So at this point in my career, any company willing to put a strap on a dinosaur like me, it means the world. Well, I've just turned 40 this year. I'm not getting any younger.
Oh, you act like you're 60. I was like 40. Wow, that's nothing. Listen, I was ready for you to say like 65 or something. I mean, listen, Ric Flair was in the ring a few months back at like 73. I mean, listen, Ricky Steamboat just wrestled quote unquote his last match. I mean, Jeff Jarrett's still wrestling as a full timer.
Yeah, all right. There are exceptions to the rule. Guys who have done it the right way. They've worked for respectable promotions. They've looked after themselves. Unfortunately, I can't say that I've gone that route. I've been stupid enough to do backyarding, extreme wrestling, and injuries have started to mount up. So, some point, I'm definitely in the next 10 years, it's going to be over for me, for sure. But we're not going to
mention what injuries though, because we don't want to give Dan Robertson that satisfaction.
No, because he's listening. He's here with us, so you definitely don't. I always tell wrestlers, don't tip your hand. Don't tip your hand.
Oh God, no! And to be honest with you, it'd take someone a lot bigger and a lot better than him to actually get the better of me, even with the injuries. I'm not concerned. So let's just get that out of the way.
Sure.
With what I was being a champion, honestly, there's no feeling like it. The adoration of the fans that you are the man. Ric Flair said it best: to be the man, you gotta beat the man. And once you are the man, there's no feeling like it. I really, really, really like doing the fanfare thing. I will sit and sign autographs until my fingers are bloody. I will talk to anybody who wants to talk to me about professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
Because this isn't just my love, it's my passion. And if I can inspire just one kid to go to the local wrestling gym, sign up, and actually make something of themselves in the business, that for me is a big win. So to be a champion and inspire generations of wrestlers to come, it's everything. Now, going back to what we were saying about adding more titles to our collective, I'm a bit confused as to why we haven't really had many tag team title shots. it's clear that the formula we have works. I just need a promoter out there. If anyone's listening, you've got a solid tag team here.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because I'm glad that you brought this up because on Sportswire Radio, we actually have a lot of wrestlers from different places, and I'm actually gonna do you guys a favor, and I'm going to name some of those companies. You may or may not have heard of them, so I'll actually do you guys a solid, and I'll make sure this gets out there. No problem at all. So I know, I know that there's KOW Knockout Wrestling, which returns March the 11th, and certainly the company there that their champions are the Underclass, which is the team of Logan and the unforgettable Andre Decker. I'm sure they could use some competition. We have right now in the LWF
Underclass versus First Class. That podium
it
writes itself.
Yeah. I'm sure that when we get ALP back on, who's the promoter there in KOW, I am sure it's going to perk his interest on that. We have the LWF, which is also going to be on December the 17th for their Fightmare for Christmas. Their champions at the moment are Synergy. Well, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Synergy.
I know
who are on WWE Network for outside of the United States. That's another company that I could certainly see you guys in. There's some other companies that might need to consider adding tag team championships, like GT Ministries, which, by the way, Casey Bradley mentions GT Ministries. That's another company. We could also mention CCW, which is Colored Championship Wrestling. And the Working Class Militia had once held those championships there for quite a while. So that's another company that I could see you guys potentially in. There's another
company. At the end of the day, we don't care what the banner says, whether it says British Champion, World Champion, Intercontinental Champion, Junior Heavyweight Champion, Tag Team. I don't care what it says.
Yeah, you got a title.
It's another thing.
Listen. Well, like I said, I think I pretty much. We could go and list other companies, but I think that they'll get the point on Sportswire Radio that there's a tag team right now that combined has 4 championships in their resume currently that they hold at the moment. That team is Champagne Charlie and the Nomad Dalton Garrett. And if you want to follow these guys, Champagne Charlie Vintage 92 on Instagram, the _ Nomad Wrestler on Instagram. I'm pretty sure that those pages will come up. And if you're whoever is the promoter out there right now listening and watching, I am sure that it could be very easy to book these guys.
I'm an email or a phone call away.
Well, that's a good point. That is a good point. And Michael Noel says, hearing those words makes me want to sign up, but I know for a fact I can't. I had to cancel my shot, I would assume, the COVID shot, purely because my dad comes first with rare blood cancer, so I had to cancel my chance at ever.
I'm so sorry.
Well, you guys, speaking of wrestlers getting in the ring, you guys are going to chuckle about this, but I had posted this as a clip on my Instagram, and a wrestler that I interviewed on Monday asked me a question. I'm doing this for 4 years, and he asked me, he's like, when are you going to be in the ring wrestling? I'm like, well, I'm not a wrestler. Then he was like, well, why don't you go and train and be a wrestler? Because I think a lot of people want to see you in the ring. I'm like, yeah, maybe. We'll see. As Vince McMahon would say, never say never. But we're having a great time.
Absolutely not. At the end of the day, I've got no problem with untrained people stepping in with trained people like us. Because at the end of the day, we can do the heavy lifting. You can get the pin and send the crowd home happy.
I don't think I'm going to do that.
And if you've got the passion and you're willing to learn and not afraid to take a few bumps along the way, then anything is really possible.
Well, listen, I will say this, never say never. I'm not going to go too far ahead of myself and take a pin from anybody, but what I will say, though, in the meantime...
No, I was saying you get the pin. If you work a match...
I would actually say I would not want to pin somebody else.
I will say this for you, because of what you're doing here with the... with this fantastic show, by the way, I can see you being a great either. If you don't get involved in wrestling, either being a great announcer or
I will tell you, I have been that is more my realm, because that's something that I've discussed with some other places. So that
color commentary, you've got color commentary written all over. You've
got the great energy about it.
Yeah, listen, that
not
would
only
be
that,
more.
But you've got the '90s Raven look with the long hair and the stripped out
Johnny Polo, yeah.
Well, it's funny you said that. As a kid, I remember one of my first early memories of wrestling, and we'll come back to you guys in a second, but actually was Johnny Polo when he was on the commentary commentary with Vince McMahon, and then he was the manager for the Quebecers, who were the tag team champions at the time. So listen, never say never. I am from that neck of the woods, obviously, here in New York, where ECW and all that stuff was born, but we are having a great time. In about 15 or so minutes with the guys here, Champagne Charlie and the Nomad Dalton Garrett, before their big match coming up December the 17th at Nonstop Action Wrestling's Nuclear Winter. They will be across the apron against the team of Young Horus and the Cult of Killjoy himself, Dan Robertson. We were certainly excited to see the guys for the first time here in Nonstop Action Wrestling. We will also see them, as recently announced just a few short hours ago, they will be a part of the Winter Rumble here at Nuclear Winter. And I also want to make sure I give a plug to Nonstop Action Wrestling's charity here, and that's at justgiving.com/fundraising /NSAW UTM_source. So if you want to help out and support this cause here, they're giving their money here to the Children's Hospital. I think, please donate. Justgiving.com.
Do it. It's, fundraising. I know things are tight at the moment. We've got the cost of living crisis. We've got the energy crisis. But there are people out there much worse off than we are.
Oh, absolutely.
It doesn't matter if it's a few coins or 10 quid. If you can spare it,
as Bob Geldof said, give us your money.
Yes, give it, and definitely give it. And one more time, I want to read that link out. Is justgiving.com /fundraising /NSAW UTM_South and source. And that is for fundraising for the Children's Hospital charity here locally. So please make sure you go to NSAW Wrestling UK for more information. Absolutely. Casey Bradley says, I think you guys would make awesome trainers for the new trainees of wrestling. Well,
that's a compliment in itself. It really is.
I am available for seminars, but the main problem is not only am I a professional wrestler, but here in the UK, I work for the ambulance service.
Oh, so, somebody I actually know, believe it or not, who actually got me on in the UK, also is an ambulance employee. His name is Trevor Lake, who was a boxing promoter for a while. So what a small world there. You're actually an EMT, and he's an EMT as well. What a small world. What a small world.
I'd definitely be up for doing that at some point, if me and Dalton could go down there together, because obviously we traveled together and stuff like that.
Sure.
And just getting the time to do it. But definitely something to look into down the line.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that, I'm all for turning up, and I'm all for passing on the knowledge. Yeah. It's getting a bit wiry, but it is still in there.
I got to give you guys one point. You're going to chuckle when I say this, but I hope that one day you guys have those ride-along videos similar to what Disciple and Lance Rivera had years ago. I'm sure you caught those.
Well, it's funny you should say that. Charlie was actually saying about doing one on the journey up this time round. We've actually got a special playlist all ready for the car.
Rock and roll playlist, baby. So,
oh boy! I tell you what,
you don't think I grew this hair out for no reason?
You remind me a little bit of a
stop showing off. I can't.
Listen, Les, we'll come back to this in a second, but you do remind me a little bit of an early Triple H. You do have that early WWF, 96, 97 is Triple H with your
here's the thing. I even though, like I said, I was born in the early 90s, but I loved watching the old school styles of your Gorgeous George and your Ric Flairs and those flamboyant characters. I was always a fan of, so it was just like, wow, if that is something I want to be doing. Yes. They talk the talk, but they can also back it up as well.
Absolutely.
And it's like, that is something, yeah. And I came from quite a rough neighborhood when I was growing up. We didn't have guys who would look like that. You had these guys who said they were gangsters, but were actually just kids in hoods. Do you know what I mean? So
I can sort of relate to that. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and that was always like the neighborhood that I grew up in. It was kind of like, yeah, they're gangsters, but in reality, they were just we were like middle class, just white kids that we really
Punks.
Weren't like, that's what. But we didn't know it at that time. But let me get
me laugh. If someone has to turn around and tell you they're a gangster, they're not
a gangster. Yeah, I've heard that line. The Lawman Kyle Kennedy says, "Fight me." So he basically is put his battleground.
Who is that to? Who is that to? Ask him that now. Who is that to? Is that to me or is that to Dalton?
Okay, well, Lawman Kyle Kennedy, I think you have been asked who do you want to fight here, whether it's the Nomad Dalton Garrett or Champagne Charlie. Who would you like to fight? While I do that here, we have a link here once again, justgiving.com backspace fundraising NSAW. More evolution Triple H. Yeah, I could see a little bit of that. Did someone say The Rock? Now I like this team more, meaning that your Rock playlist.
Yeah.
Let me ask you guys this question.
Absolutely.
We'll come back and see what Kyle Kennedy says in a second. But what are your goals for 23? I kind of feel like, and I've been asking wrestlers this question the past few weeks, whether it was RPD who came on, Disciple, and you guys now that I have you on here in the same spot. Do you feel like in a lot of ways that this weekend on the 17th next week is kind of a springboard to maybe some big goals in 23? And what are maybe some of those goals that you'd like to have in mind?
Oh yeah, this year for me, this is the opportunity to end this year on a flourish and hopefully plant some seeds to start off on a good, promising new year. Listen, I put a post up earlier today saying
I saw it.
how this year has probably been my best so far in my career. 6 years in the business, and I feel this year has really done something for me. So basically, the year of 2023, vintage Champagne Charlie here. More opportunities, more companies, more opponents, more titles. I want it. I want more. That's all I can say. And not just
I
that.
do just have to say this, Charlie. You saying that, I mean, if this year has been your best year, the way that you're progressing next year, you're going to be in the stratosphere. The year after, you're going to be in the ionosphere. You are taking off at such a rate of knots, mate. You're coming along so well that, I think you're going to be a main event player. I'd give it another 4 years, and I'm going to sit. Your name's going to be on marquees worldwide. You are going to be a main event player.
Thank you, bro. That means a lot. Thank you.
And for you, the Nomad, is this kind of a springboard maybe to some goals you might have in 23? And what would be those goals for you?
I'm a very organic person. I don't set out with any expectations, because if you set out with expectations, there's always the chance you're going to fail. If you have goals, you may not hit them. I'm a firm believer in what's going to happen is going to happen. I've already put out my posts on Facebook, Instagram. People know that I'm available for bookings next year. If you need a good, solid heavyweight, and I don't care whether you want me to work undercard, mid-card, or main event. I don't care where you want me. I will be there. But again, I really, really would like to get on the tag team scene with Charlie. We've got bags and bags of charisma. We've got bags and bags of talent. I just think it's the time now. I really want to get Charlie out there, and I want to get more gold and show him the way.
Here's the thing, because I actually already have here in Essex. I for the company that I train with, DKW Dropkicks Wrestling, which by the way is where Nick Aldis trained. When he first started out.
Sure.
Yeah. And I have a tag team partner here. He's a dear friend of mine, Benny Nitro. We do tag team stuff all over the place, but I don't mind doing tag stuff with my good man Dalton Garrett as well. I only tag with people who I trust. Both Nitro and Dalton, I would trust with my life. So, I'm happy to do
I think if we bring Nitro on board, and maybe if we work something out with Chris Murphy, I think we might have the building of our stable there, bro.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
You know what?
Listen, Nitro is a hell of a cruiserweight, so I think we need a cruiserweight there. So I would put money on Nitro for that, definitely.
Wow, I think we just heard a bombshell.
You heard it here.
Radio.
You heard it here first, guys. Sportswire. You heard it here.
I think we might be
coming.
The first class here. I think we are building a team. We are building a group. We are building an organization. And I think whether you're Nonstop Action Wrestling or any other company out there, you better watch out. You better run for cover, because Champagne Charlie, the Nomad Dalton Garrett, with the possibilities of Nitro and also Chris Murphy. I mean, listen, I see big things ahead for these guys. I see more championships. I see domination. And like I said, just get out of there. Get out of their way.
I do have one big thing already lined up for next year. I'm still the number one contender for the National Heavyweight Championship at Immortal Wrestling.
Wow.
I still have my number one contender slot there. So, Damien, I'm putting you on notice, man. I haven't forgotten, and neither is Jay White at Immortal Wrestling. So
I've
keep
got
your
something
eyes
big as
peeled,
well.
bro, because I'm coming for that National Heavyweight Championship next year.
I've got something big as well. My first match for 2023, Stoke-on-Trent, Hijab Pro Wrestling. I'll be defending my Immortal Wrestling Fighting Championship against Xander Zulu. Xander Zulu's coming for you, man.
Ooh, ladies and when is that going to take place for us here?
That is in Stoke-on-Trent for Hijab Pro Wrestling, right on the 8th of January.
Okay, you know what? That's not that far
Guys,
away.
I'm
Not at
giving
all.
you a tip right now. If you're betting people, stick a score on Champagne Charlie. I'm telling you, that is a sure win for
Well, I'll
Champagne
tell you
Charlie.
what. I'm betting on England over France coming up in the World Cup in the quarterfinals, and I'm betting on Champagne Charlie to continue to hold that Immortal Fighting Championship. That is for sure. I know that you guys are busy and you guys have a lot of interviews. You have stuff lined up through the cooch. You guys are champions, and everybody wants a piece of you guys, whether it's BBC, whether it's Sky Sports, whether it's you name it, they want a piece of you guys. So I'm going to ask you guys two questions. And the first question I'm going to be, well, you guys can answer in any order. The first question I'm going to ask you guys, if you had one or two moments in your career that stood out most, what would be those moments?
That is a big one. I suppose for me, one of the moments that I first had was I took part in a show at the beginning of this about April of this year. It was a new company here in Essex called Championship Extreme Wrestling, CXW, who are by the way, making absolute strides. And for me, it was just I was not originally supposed to be on the show. I was brought in as a replacement for someone who was sadly injured, but they said because of my passion for the business, that's why they asked me to come in. But I'm sure I'm there, and I feel like so out of place because in my mind I'm still freshly new to the game at that point, and I'm in a dressing room with the likes of the UK Pitbulls, Bulk and Big Dave. Fearless Flatliner, who's been in the UK scene for over 20 years. Zach Zodiac,
I know Zach Zodiac
of the Knights. I'm sharing a Johnny Storm. I'm sharing a locker room with these guys, and for me, just being there around that level of talent and that level of experience was just an experience like no other. And then stepping out into the ring that night. Going against another guy who's a good friend of ours, a wrestler by the name of Bleach, great talent.
Yep.
Opening this show with about 300 people in attendance that night. That was one of the most pivotal moments for me. Another top moment, obviously, as well, winning this. But,
I would have to think Championship Gold is it's your first championship.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying experiences as well. This life in this business, just life in general, is made up of moments, okay? And sometimes some moments are more memorable than others, but that moment of being in that dressing room,
some moments are fleeting.
That moment there was just was something I'll never forget.
For you, the Nomad Dalton guy, you probably got like 1,000 moments, but I'll still ask it if there's one or two you want to share.
Yeah, that's a really, really hard question to answer. That's not something I can sit down and literally off the top of my head give you. There have been so many great moments. How do you just pick one from 25 years? You just can't do it. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. From the time I started this journey to where I am now, the whole thing has just been an incredible ride. I never, ever would have thought that a council estate boy from West London would achieve what I've achieved.
Well, you know what? 25 years to have been in the ring still, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's got to be maybe the number one moment. You're in the ring for 25 years still, and you're thriving.
Well, I say in the ring 25 years. The first 3 years of my career, I started training at 15. So I didn't actually see a wrestling ring until I hit 18. But that was where I literally learned the craft from the ground up. Bumps after bumps after bumps, running laps of, sweaty gyms and training halls. Drills and drills and drills and drills until it became second nature, till muscle memory was like that. and then to reach some of the plateaus that I have. I think one of my favorite, actually, I will go on a limb here. One of my favorite memories from my career, we were wrestling for a charity called Aussie Boys Fund.
Okay.
A wee
I've heard
young
of that.
lad who had neuroblastoma. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us anymore.
I'm sorry.
But, well, unfortunately, bad things happen to good people. And little Ozzy, he was an absolute hero, an absolute champion in every sense of the word. The kid had no fear right up until the very end. This lad fought and fought and fought. And we were raising money to get him some treatment abroad. And I actually had the pleasure of sharing the ring with Roy and Zach Knight. And I actually
Wow.
beat both nights for the Aussie Boys Fund title. So, this thing, that is probably one of the highlights of my career.
That's pretty
And that
cool.
was one of the very first instances I had working with the Knights. And being around them for the length of time I have, their professionalism, their love for the business, their understanding of the business, I've just learnt so much from them. Big love to Ricky Knight Sr. If it wasn't for him, I don't think I'd be the wrestler and the person I am now. Sweet Soraya, this woman loves with a passion that you just cannot put into words. She loves so deeply and cares so much about everybody she comes across. Roy has had his demons. The man has literally got a heart the size of the sun. This guy will not quit. And he's doing so well at the moment. I'm so proud of him. Zach, to see how he's come along, and to see him on AEW TV with his
I was going
sister.
to say, yep.
Can't put that into words. Just so proud of him. And then there's the other Knights, PJ Knight, Ricky Knight Jr. Look at what Ricky Knight Jr. has achieved on the scene. Rev Pro champion. He's the immortal wrestling British. Is it the?
He's the king of it. King of England champion.
Yeah.
He's the CXW World Heavyweight Champion right now.
I mean, just the people, they've got wrestling in their blood. They're riddled with it.
Yeah.
And they're almost like they're like the Hearts of the UK. That's pretty much what
they are Britain's answer to the Hearts. So,
but they literally, their charity and their good naturedness just knows no bounds. They've been so good to me over the years. And again, I wouldn't be the person I am if it wasn't for being around people like that. So I'm going to tip my hat and I'm going to say a massive thank you. And I love you. I love every one of you guys so much.
Myself, I've had the pleasure of meeting a few of the Knights. I've met Zach Zodiac a couple of times. I've met Ricky Knight Jr. I've met Tony Knight. I've met but hopefully within time, I will.
One of the best heavyweight. This guy, Tony Knight, okay, he is one of the, if not the best super heavyweight out there. And the fact that this guy isn't working more, it's an absolute travesty. This guy, honestly, for a guy his size, man, could he go?
But I hope to get the pleasure to one day meet and hopefully work with more of the Knights down the line.
Well, listen, never say never. There's always an opportunity, and it's always good when you hear of wrestling families that do so much and for other wrestlers, and that's why we love professional wrestling.
It's not just wrestlers, it's for the community.
True.
When I say these people's charity knows no bounds, it really doesn't. They will put their name to any good cause.
Here's an example of charity.
Thanks for that, Steph. Little Kai Rebuttal. We did a white collar boxing event a few months back, and I was actually there working as a medic.
Wow! Okay.
And we raised how much was it on the day? £40,000 on the day.
Wow! Holy shoot!
Yeah, they've since gone on. Unfortunately, this event was mired in tragedy.
Very hard. Listen, that's very hard to do. £40,000 in a day. Listen, I have a background in politics, and I worked for famous politicians in New York, and they didn't raise they didn't raise £40,000 in a day. So what you did, that shows you their commitment to the community. That shows you you can say whatever you want on sports.
Yeah.
I take no offense to anything. But
Yeah.
there is, before I get to the last question I have for you guys, and we could talk for hours. We're gonna definitely get you guys back on for sure because you guys bring.
We'd be happy to
And
come back.
we will definitely make that happen because we always get everybody back. But I think this point says it best. Sounds like these stories would make a great wrestling book. Yeah, you guys listen might have a book on the horizon. Who knows?
We definitely look into that. I think. Yeah.
I think you know what. There's
I need to learn to spell first.
well, I would say there's actually now an app that's called Speechify, and you can actually, if you have something that you can read, you don't actually have to read the physical book. They just translate the text to speech. So there is that out there. So you never know. So listen, there's always those options out there. But let me ask you guys this last question before closing thoughts, and I want to give you guys final words for Dan Robertson and Young Horus and anybody you're going to see at the Winter Rumble next Saturday.
All I can say is it's going to be a great education for them both. Pain 101, starting with honors and graduating at the end of the night by being carried out on stretchers.
Ooh, big words there for you, Dalton Garrett. Follow that up.
Horace, unfortunately for you, mate, your tag team partner has made this very personal. Anything I do to you is on his head. Dan Robertson, come the 17th, I'm going to part your ass like the Red Sea and my foot is Moses.
Ooh, my goodness, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know how to follow that up. I just know one thing. If I'm Dan Robertson and Young Horus, I would tread very, very lightly next weekend at the Be Strong Performance Center there in Swinton. I would certainly make some reservations. I would certainly see if you can find something else to do. Maybe you just not want to show up or do the forfeit option because these guys tonight, and look at the belts that they have. Look at their fist. Look at just their overall angst and determination tonight on Sportswire Radio. These guys might be coming for the first time on Nonstop Action Wrestling, but I have a feeling this is not going to be the last time, and this is just going to be the beginning of these guys and their domination of Nonstop Action Wrestling and the springboard for an even more dominant and an even bigger 23 and maybe even an ever-growing and expanding first class, possibly, just possibly, as we heard the big bombshell here, that Chris Murphy and maybe Nitro could be joining the first class of the UK here, and the Nomad Dalton Garrett and Champagne Charlie. You'll have to stay tuned for that. But, gentlemen, I want to give you guys the floor. I want to give you guys some closing thoughts. Anything you want to plug, share, say for us? And I turn it over to you first, Champagne Charlie, and anything that you want to add or say or plug. And
all I can say is do your bit to support, British independent wrestling, pro wrestling in general, basically. Whether you like, the big companies like WWE or AEW, or even if you like the small rural areas like what we're trying to do here, keep pro wrestling alive. Don't follow the dirt sheets because they'll just ruin it for you. No one likes the spoilers, okay?
No.
Support rights. Whether you're cheering, whether you boo them, remember, every wrestler is doing this for you, okay? And so support them back, follow, and like the content.
And for you, the Nomad Dalton Garrett, anything else that you would like to say or any closing thoughts? And the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, I say the state of British wrestling at the moment, I just have to say we are so well represented on the world stage. If you go back to the 1980s, British wrestling had nearly died.
I know. I've heard that on Facebook.
To get where we are now, I mean, it's in no small part to guys like Drew McIntyre on the big stage, Sheamus. It's thanks to guys like Nick
Aldis. How about Saraya as well?
Nick Aldis.
I was getting there. I was going chronologically.
All right.
So I was getting there. British wrestling is just so well represented at the moment. Please, I know money's tight at the moment, but a lot of these independent shows, they're not on holiday. They're really not. Your kids will love it. It is the best night's entertainment that you will get for the money. You can't even go out and get a fish and chip dinner for less than 40 quid for a family now. A lot of these independent wrestling shows, £25 gets you a family ticket. Get out there.
I will say this. Pro wrestling is one of the last forms of entertainment which the full or all the family can enjoy. On television these days, television shows are like tailored to different age groups. Never do you get anyone coming together anymore and watching something as one. pro wrestling is one of the few things that allow that to happen.
Oh, 1,000%. And that's why professional wrestling, we want to continue to support. And also, of course, want to give shout outs to some other wrestlers that we actually know on Sportswire, like a Pete Dunne, who's now Butch, because Pete Dunne started out in KOW years ago. He was another guy that came out from the independent scene. I definitely want to make sure I mention him, and even guys in the past who are just outside of the UK, but the likes of a Fit Finley, who's still around. And
good old Fit Finley. Yeah, I've met him a couple of times on the seminar circuit.
And his son's a big star now. Yep.
And Regal as well. I mean, what this guy doesn't know about wrestling isn't worth knowing.
Regal, I have to say, he I don't know if you guys know this, but RPD I've known for a long time now, and he has a relationship with RP Davis going back to when he was a boxer. So Regal still actually keeps in touch with RPD. So we never go and say, hey, RPD, what did Regal say today? But he drops it in when we let him when he wants to. But obviously there is certainly a lot of names out there in the UK that have gone on and certainly done it to the big time. And we certainly want to make sure we support everybody. But most importantly, before I get to a few more comments, before I get out of here, support Champagne Charlie, the Nomad Dalton Garrett on Instagram, Champagne Charlie Vintage 92. The _ Nomad Wrestler, NSAW Wrestling UK on Instagram, where you can watch the show if you like me. Also, NSAW _ UK on Twitter. Nonstop Action Wrestling on Facebook, YouTube, Nonstop Action Wrestling Universe. And also, Andrew says, great show again. I can't wait for next Saturday. It's going to be an amazing show.
Absolutely.
You, me,
both. I look forward to meeting you in person, Andrew. Okay, come up, say hi, get a high five.
And this individual says here, support wrestling. These guys are special. Brett Rest is at an elite level, and we are proud to wrestle and represent. All I'm going to say is that this individual is an interesting individual. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
Yeah. Let's not break it.
That's all we want. It's all we want to do. And he says also Giant Haystacks, Big Daddy, Martin Kirby as well.
Well, this is the era I grew up in. I grew up watching World of Sport 4 p.m. on ITV. So I grew up with the likes of Jackie Pallo, Haystacks, Big Daddy, Cat Weasel.
I live in the same
Endo Nagasaki. What a gentleman he is.
I live in the same. I'm originally from a place called Salford, which is just outside of Manchester.
Oh, I know Salford, of course. You know, Jack Johnson's from Salford, by the way, right?
Oh,
you know that.
Yeah. And Giant Haystacks lived there for many, many years in his life. Yeah, so it was. So there we go.
So you have to tell Jack Johnson for stop saying, "Oh, Salford, we don't have anything." He always says Salford, but now we can say, well, some other wrestlers historically before you and Mr. Johnson came from there did have a lot of success. So that's all great stuff. And also, last comment I'll get in from Michael says, "Well, you'll get to see me." So,
I like the way this guy. I've liked this guy's comments all the way through the show.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He's become a fan of ours on Sportswire, and he's been at some of the last couple of Nonstop Action wrestling shows.
To meeting them all,
and I think he's also at some of the
looking forward to meeting all y'all. Don't be shy. Come up and say hi. I'm an intimidating figure, but I'm a gentleman at heart.
Well, you got me fired up. And ladies and gentlemen, my name is the Reverend Tom Bryce. Tonight we were here with Champagne Charlie, who's the Immortal Fighting Wrestling Champion, and also the Nomad Dalton Garrett, who has not one, not two, but 3 championships, and they're going to be in the ring one more time, December the 17th. At Nonstop Action Wrestling's Nuclear Winter. They're going to be wrestling the team of Young Horace and Dan Robertson. They will also be in the Winter Rumble to decide the #1 contender to whoever walks away with that Nonstop Action Wrestling World Class Championship. If you are on sportnarium.com/player, you'll go back to your regularly scheduled programming in a little while. Tomorrow night, I will be on live 10 p.m. Eastern Time with pro wrestling star Jacob Deese of the Wrestling War Zone in the state of California. So I'm looking forward to getting Jacob's journey and his story and everything else that he's going through to get to where he's been. So, Jacob, I thank you for the opportunity. I also thank the promoter out there in Wrestling War Zone for reaching out to us. And again, if you are on Sportswire Radio, I'll be back tomorrow night, 10 o'clock. I'll also have more coverage of Nonstop Action Wrestling next week with Callum Majakester and the lawman Kyle Kennedy of the Society. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in here on the #1 global radio station that is Sports